next couple of seconds. We're live. Greg?
Okay, good night to the Belizean public at home and abroad. Tonight, sitting with me as my virtual host, we have attorney Miss Sharon Pitts from Belize, as myself, Mr. Gregory Brackett from Belize, and we have Mr. Roody from the Cayo district. Also, we have tonight none other than Mr. Leonard Brackett, all the way from Northern California in the wonderful state of San Francisco. Tonight, we will touch some subject that I know the Belizean people at home and abroad will be getting a full plate of education as to what our present government is trying to do when he has started constitution reform. And with that said, let me turn it over to Mr. Brackett. Leonard?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Greg. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm one of the panelists for tonight's show. Hopefully, we will bring some good information to the general public. And hopefully, after this program tonight, at least we'll have resolved some issues that needs to be resolved in regards to our people's rights and the derogation of those rights. To start with, I would like to. Well, normally we do a little prayer and a little Bible reading. Mr. Wade, you're set for that, or not ready yet?
Yes.
First, let's go to the introductory, Mr. Wade, Ms. Pitts.
Okay.
Let
go
them
ahead.
introduce themselves first before you do that.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Pitts, can you introduce
Pitts, go ahead.
yourself?
Well, good night, everybody. I'm Sharon from Belize, and we there, the whole fort, and I know Belizeans at home and abroad, no? When we come together, we hold the fort, love of God, country, and with people and humanity, we enjoy it, we do it, ongoing commitment, and that's a part of what I believe that we have with the Panelists. We continue we self as good citizens of the world and the country, and most of all respect the heritage that God bless us with, and to hand it down to the people, especially with children and generations, and generations. And if there's anything we fight for, it's that. Afraid for God, and under that, afraid anybody take over country, and that's how we get all the feistiness and the mouth and commitment, and with a kindred spirits, man, right?
Amen. Amen.
Yes, well said, Ms. Pitts. Mr. Wade, let's hear your introduction to the people at home and abroad.
Well, a pleasant good night once again. We are at our 25th edition of Belizean Affairs. And again, we have a new guest, Mrs. I welcome her, Miss Sharon Pitts. She has a vast knowledge of, what's really going on in this country. And like she says, she's about people and country and our family structure and children. And on that note, we'll move right along because time is of an essence. And I will continue on Proverbs, short reading, always a word before we launch our program. I'll continue from 11 to Proverbs chapter 11 to 20. It says, lack sense, but a man of understanding remain silent. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a cool covered. Keeps things covered. Where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in the abundance of counselors, there is safety.
Amen.
Whoever put up security for a stranger will surely suffer harm, but he who hates striking hands in pledge is secure. A gracious woman gets honored. A violent man get riches. A man who is kind benefits himself, but a cruel man hurt himself. A wicked earns deceptive wages, but one who sows righteousness gets a sure reward. Whoever is steadfast in righteousness will live, but he who pursue evil will die. Those of crooked hearts are an abomination to the Lord, but those of blameless ways are his delight. Be assured, an evil person will not go unpunished, but the offspring of the righteous will be delivered. That's my reading from Proverbs 11:11 to 20.
Could you do our prayers to Mr. Wade, since I'll have a lot of reading to do, if you don't mind?
Divine, Almighty, Creator of the universe. We come to you here tonight, Lord God, and we ask for your safety. We ask for you to give us wisdom. We ask for you to give us understanding. We ask for you to give us courage to do what we do and to educate the people and the love of people and love of nation. And tonight, Lord God, I want you to bless Miss Sharon, Sharon Pitts, she's a lover of people and country.
Amen.
And she will speak open on the things that affect her people, and her country with no fear. Lord God, please give us the will, the strength to do what we do.
Amen.
And bless us on this 25th edition of Belizean Affairs. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Tonight we will call a spade like you rightfully mentioned. With that said, let's get into it, Mr. Brackett.
Yes, sir. Okay, here we go. To kick off our program tonight, I'll be reading. Okay, we're going to be dealing substantively with legal matters, whether it be case laws or whether it be direct issues relating to constitutional matters. And so we're going to go into this particular portion of the program because we have different sections, but this particular part of the program, I'm going to read commentary that I had written before. I think it's very salient for this present time and circumstances we're going through. And therefore, I want to bless our panelist member on our show and the people of Belize at home and abroad with having the opportunity to hear what I had espoused or taught. The following commentary, legal citations, were made by Gregory Brackett and Mr. Leonard Brackett as a contribution to a Facebook post regarding GOB or Government of Belize constitution reform efforts and non-implementation of UNCAP. I titled the commentary, a very long title by the way, so please bear with me. Belize Constitution Reform Commission, now known as People's Constitution Commission, open bracket, take note, rights derogation, possible scofflaw, question close bracket, question followed by emphasis. The reason why I postulated this matter in that form or type of wording or statement, and with all these exclamation marks and question marks, is because we're in treacherous times, and who is to tell what the outcome is going to be? My cousin, Mr. Gregory Brackett, stipulated as part of the writings that he was doing at the time, trying to address those matters, under the basic structure doctrine, and he went on to comment, it was used twice in Belize before. Once in the Bowen and Veos case against the government in the first case, and Bowen versus Attorney General of Belize, 2009, Supreme Court case number 2. A group of landowners sought to challenge the constitutionality of the Belize Constitution, 6th Amendment Bill of 2008, known as the 6th Amendment. This bill was intended to enable the government to exploit the recent discovery of oil at the time in the country for an account of that, of the fallout from this particular Boeing litigation. It's recommended that you see Prime Minister of Belize versus Veos and Boeing. 2010 UK PC, which means Privy Council, number 7. That was a decision by the Privy Council in that instant. In simple terms, the basic structure doctrine states that there must be a difference between amending a constitution and replacing the constitution. As an amendment to a constitution can only make minor alterations to the constitution and the acts that comprise or authorizes the constitution, without departing from the fundamental structure of the constitution. Part of Chief Justice Counter's ruling, Chief Justice of Belize, by the way, we all remember him, stipulated that Parliament cannot legitimately make laws that are contrary to the basic structure of the Constitution itself. He went on to say, in the Chief Justice's view, the basic structure comprises not only the fundamental rights guaranteed by Part 2, Section 3 to 19 inclusive of the Constitution, but also the principles, ideas, beliefs, and desires of the people of Belize as enshrined or enumerated in the preamble of the Constitution, which includes, among other things, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Which include, among other things, respect for the rule of law and the right of the individual to the ownership of property, of private property, which are specifically enumerated and highly advised by the Constitution. The Chief Justice also went on and said he had regards to the principles of the separation of powers doctrine as well, which had previously been recognized by the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, which is a higher level committee that deals with all judicial matter in terms of stipulating whether or not the laws were ruled correctly or incorrectly. That group is called, as I'm going to repeat again, the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council, JCPC, into being a basic feature of the structure of Westminster type
Mhm.
constitutions adopted by the Commonwealth Caribbean countries upon independence.
Mhm. Mhm.
Open bracket, or referring to Hans versus the Queen of 1977, AC, which refers to an appellate court decision number 195, which says this principle would be violated if the citizens of Belize were to be denied access to the courts for compensation for the arbitrary deprivation of their property by the state. Of course, you remember the Vales case and the Boeing case were dealing with land-related issues. But what about the approval of the legislation by a special majority of the National Assembly, which a lot of people have problems with? As I have told people before, and I keep on saying, that even if you have 100% of all the members in the legislature, both from UDP and PUP, joining together to make an unconstitutional law, that on its face does not make it legal or constitutional. It just makes it other law, as the Constitution defines it to be. And then that other law, to the point of the inconsistency with the Constitution, is to be ruled or acknowledged as being null and void. I think we've been through that particular phrase a couple dozen times since we started this particular program, especially on Fridays. It went on to say, but what about the approval of the legislation by a special majority of the National Assembly? As a question, was this to come for nothing? In the Chief Justice's view, S69, open bracket meaning subsection or section 69, close bracket, was a mere manner and form requirement, no more than a procedural handbook 101, and was certainly not determinative of the constitutionality of legislation enacted by Parliament. That is to say, if Parliament legislate or enact any changes to the Constitution, despite, as I previously mentioned, even if it's 100% of them, that does not make it constitutional, and it is not Parliament that has the authority and the vested power to determine what is constitutional or not. That is left for the High Court as a separate part of the three branches of government. So Parliament could enact 1,000 or 1,000,000 laws or any amount of laws that they wish to, but if they're not enacted within the boundaries and the constraints of the present Constitution, they're acting as a rogue organization and a bunch of scofflaws. Quite apart from the formal procedures laid down by Section 69, any prospective amendments of the Constitution had to conform to the Constitution's normative requirements as captured by Section 68, which provides that all laws enacted by Parliament must be subject to the Constitution. We find that in Section 105 to 107. Any other view would entail subordinating the supremacy of the Constitution, which we all know, and I've said dozens of times before too. The Constitution is a living document and self-preserving, and it's the supreme law of the land. We find that in Part 2, Part 1, Section 2 of the Constitution of Belize. Any other view would entail subordinating the supremacy of the Constitution in favor of parliamentary supremacy, which is a no-no. For once the required majority for for an amendment is obtained, as is stipulated by 68 and 69, the assumption would then be absolute no constitutional provisions would be beyond the alteration or revocation powers of the legislator. And that is not what the Constitution contemplates. I went on to say, in addition to what was read above, as a further hope of clarity, I used my name and I said, under my name, Leonard Brackett, Leonard A. Brackett, I went on to say, and if the Belize Constitution is to be changed, unless the whole thing is eviscerated, discarded, which would be a seditious act, by the way, were allowed for, then the constitutionality prescribes processes, protocols, practices, and procedures should be adhered to, including required mandamus plebiscite of a referendum and powers reserved to and vested in the people of Belize, etc., as per Chapter 4, Section 2, Part 2, Section 1 and 2 in the Belize Constitution, in order to not be inconsistent or be declared constitutionally null and void. Those processes, procedures, protocols, and practices must be adhered to in making any changes to the Constitution by the legislator, as well as by anyone advocating on behalf of the legislator to try and get the people and to suborn the people to turn them into what you call it, Greg? Type of citizenship?
Sovereign citizen.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Brackett, I thank you for your...
just one last statement. It's not even long, about...
Go ahead, sir.
About 15 words at the most, just to close out, no?
Okay.
I went on to say, wake up, Belize, from your enhanced slumber. Your lunch is about to be had by others. And that's the end of that.
Thank you for your reading. Before I go to you, Ms. Pitts, I want you to remember, guys, I have mentioned this on more than one occasion. If we have 98% of Belizean who does not read the Constitution, they will believe that the way the government, past and present, is presenting it is as though when they have a supermajority, it gives them the right to do anything they want, except S69 is only a guide to tell them how they can do these amendments. But because people don't read and they listen, they sometimes, but they have the supermajority, so they can do what they want. That is not true. It's only a guide to tell them how they can do it. And we find this on more than one occasion that they're doing it informal and formal, sometime within the law and sometime outside the law. With that said, Ms. Pitts, let us hear from you on that reading.
Okay. Basically, I am very grateful to Mr. Brackett and the others of yourselves, and as well as the listenership, no, who I hope, and I thank for lending their ears. And I prefer say we choke mouth, now we discuss about the country, no. Basically, with respect to this whole thing, we have a constitution which never just start now. It came out of 1,000 years tradition from English Westminster style parliamentary system, and the rule of law.
Correct.
Parliamentary democracy, it's called many different ways, right? Constitutional supremacy.
Mhm.
Out of that system, we are, as Belizeans, I might have to do something with my charger here. So if
Go
I
right
go
ahead.
off,
Go
I
ahead.
will
Go
run
ahead.
and find
No,
the
no.
charger. The battery is going to.
See if you
As
could plug it in.
Belizeans, we have this that we've inherited. The government, they try to tell people, you know what? Independence and just handle this and Belizean and so on. Well, guess what? We were blessed and fortunate to have that, and I maintain that. It is a thing that makes us who we are and the tradition throughout the Commonwealth. So we are not like the place where they rule by decree, one politician, one president or so. We have the rule of law. Now the rule of law, one of the bicentenary brochures about 100 years ago, they had written in Belize, I think around 1898, that's more than 100, and somebody republished it. 3 diplomats were chatting, and the Spanish, the French, and the English. And like the French, they extol, one of them they extol the rights of man, and the other is something else. And the British, William Pitt, said, well, we have the rule of law. So whatever examples the others gave, Pitt said, you know what? You take the lawless coal miner house. Or he said shop. We'd say dog sit down, right? With respect, just say colloquial. He said, although half the roof might be missing and the rain, the sleet, and the snow could enter, not one of the king's horse, not one of the king's men, nor even the king himself could enter without the permission of that lowly coal miner. So
Right.
out of all these
Exactly.
traditions, it was built up by the rule of law. Then another example that used to have back in some ancient time trial by testing. So if they suspected somebody of, say, witchcraft, they threw the person in the water, the sea. And if the person didn't drown, that person was a witch. If he drowned, he innocent. Well, I guess must have gone to heaven. But if you never drowned, you were declared a witch or proved a witch and burnt at the stake. I guess man or woman, no? So what we had then too, people would go to different courts and get justice. And I said the chancellor's foot and one, it might vary, no? So you had a forging and stare decisis, doctrine of judicial precedent, right? And unlike the civil law systems out of France, Spain, or Roman or Dutch would say, you have the British rule of law, and that is it forged through the Commonwealth Caribbean. The other thing where I think I need to say with respect to this system is that the Constitution of the US, you would never find it in one book, and it is described, and I fervently agree with that, that it's stronger than the paper it's not written in, or on rather, so that you have all these constitutional conventions and traditions and heritage, right? So the
Doctrines.
rule of, you could have rules of law, which are statutes and so on, but the overall rule of law, it's a constitutional supremacy, and it's under God. Now,
Exactly.
the Constitution protects you. It defines what the country is, and it defines the rights of people. Of course, the state itself as the supreme law, and make sure, as Mr. Brackett ably set out, that anything that is inconsistent to the extent of it, and even if that was not written in our Constitution directly, based on the type constitution we have, one would, that is why you look to the written constitution, but you have to see this preamble and the spirit and the conventions which infuse the rule of law. Now,
As well as the
Mr.
case,
Brackett,
as well as the
yourself,
case,
and Mr.
Stereo
Gray
decisis case
did
too.
good work in finding some stellar examples, right? The government, it seems to me, they have that majority in parliament or the house to change the constitution. And I think they want to do it. But the fear I have is that whether they do go through this process and they go through the motions so that they could pretend when they come up with something that the people bless it. And that's the danger. Because as I say, well, a lot of people now read the Constitution, and even when we
98%.
as lawyers, students of the Constitution read it, that's something that the ongoing thing. You're always, learning and seeing different nuances and how it's played out in the court. Even with the separation of powers, there are certain cases which sometimes people take it to court because they want a judgment a certain way, which they use then to beat the backs of the people. I want to say that I'm looking at, and I'm glad of your prayers before, because one of the foremost constitutional experts in the Caribbean, Dr. Francis Alexis, right? In his book, the second edition, Constitutions, right? And I'll get into it, but just permit me to read, right? How this man started acknowledgement, right? And he has song like it repeat itself, but I think this is helpful, right? And he had dovetail and he had fortify way, right? He said, Lord God Almighty, God the Father, through Lord Jesus Christ, God the Son, our Savior, with the Holy Spirit, created the world, made man and woman in his own image, and proclaimed the only known perfect constitution, and proclaim the only known perfect constitution in commandments and laws, awesome in majesty, exalting joy, peace, and justice. To God, I give greatest glory, thanks, and praise for affording life and light, and by his love, grace, and mercy. Okay? Now, the thing is that you see the God-fearingness, you see what would infuse this, one of the best student of the Constitution in this region, and he was on we have one treatise or a big book, it has a touchstone, Wade and Phillips, and that same book, I have the copy that Philip Golson had when he was reading law in London. Now, when it comes to Constitution, right, and how it protects you, you fight and you protect your Constitution to the end, right? Sometimes you have to be careful to get where they ask for, right? If you notice public hearings and so, they call people in. Belizeans don't like God at anything. They don't like read Constitution anyway. Then they have one format, maybe 2 hours. They have one panel and they call it People's Constitution Committee. That, to my mind, if you say, you know what? When they bring something at 10 years, 15 years, you say, man, you say, oh, they never ram it down with throat. And I like being polite, but Creole, that said, they give you the booklet, right? That day on the wheel and say later on. The thing is, it's the spoon full of sugar, right? The Kool-Aid, then they put it with, right? And call it blue, call it red, call it whichever color you want. No, not only Honorable Golson, national hero, used to remind us, and Mr. Brackett was around him. I think we are blessed, and as a country as a whole, Belizeans, we had this person, right? And he was God-fearing. He said not only country people have rights, countries have rights, and it is the duty of every citizen to protect the country's rights. And that's why we have to fight for Constitution, because then they say write the Constitution, which was a surprise. They can't saturate with survey thing for people fill out. All we were being told was that it was to be some presentation on the rule of law, the Constitution and the rule of law. In my view, the whole thing was bad from the beginning, because one, who may say we want to change the Constitution, they were polite enough to say, well,
not me.
See if you want to amend it or what you want to change. The thing is that they will use this Constitution to lambaste we, cross we head at a time and the country, when I believe we should really have a moratorium or put it off indefinitely.
Correct.
Why? You hear the presenter Saturday, they say, oh, praises from abroad, Mr. Chanona here, that Jamaica and Bahamas or someplace, Barbados, Belize, going the right way. Jamaica did this and so on. Well, guess what? Each country has to find, or people have to find, what is our patriotic and nationalistic mandate. I said that because what different about Jamaica and Barbados and Bahamas than us?
They don't have somebody breathing
In the
down their
All
neck.
Island, we not have an unfounded claim, and we not have some
Correct.
people in a parliament or government, red, white, and blue, who join ranks against the people of Belize. And you know what I say? And this is where constitutional law and international is important. We have the constitution define the state of Belize, right?
Right.
All the border, the seas, and so. Law of the sea, 1982, new regime in maritime law. And so you have extended economic zones and so on, right? So what you have instead, they try past maritime areas built for fence weed, then they go further, right? So what you have is that then they tell with people,
go ahead. Did her stuff get
I think she
freeze?
froze up. I think she froze up.
Yeah, I think she froze up for a second.
Okay, Mr. Wade, maybe you could drop in a quick comment there before she gets back. I guess she will, I might try call her and ask her to redo her stuff. No, could you just Greg? Mr. Wade,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Wade. I think she will revert to her charger, as she said
Yes, I
before.
remember. Yeah.
And, right. Mr. Wade, your comment on what is happening tonight? A vast amount of knowledge being passed.
My brother, it's all truth, and like we have been, beating this horse for some time, and every time we come to the public, it's because of new development on the same issue, but new development, right? And we bring it to the public. This whole thing about our conversation tonight about the Constitution, I am of the belief then, right, that these guys, their intention is not pure. Their intention is evil, right? But they're throwing, how you call it, throw ashes in a people's eye, right? And sweep them up for, like we talked about before, Greg. They use consultation as a yes, right? So after they don't consult, they're gonna get what they want, right? And we all see how these presenters, the message they're taking to the public is not genuine. It's not what they should be taken to the public. And they do not want to throw nothing else out there, just what they were told to take to the people, right? Because if you ask them any other question outside what they are talking about the Constitution, they will cut you off. They don't want to answer your question because that's not their message, right? So my thing is with this whole scenario, right? It's a show, just like I said with the ICJ, right? It's just a show. That it's a process they're going through, but they're gonna do what they want to do. At the end of the day, they are going to reform our Constitution based on their supermajority, and they're gonna structure it in a way that their asses are not burned, right? They are going to structure it a way that whatever they have done, whatever they have done or are going to do to the country and nation, nothing could stop them, right? They're going to change the constitution in a way that they're going to be our real masters, right? They're going to change it in a way that, you know, they're going to control the courts, right? They're going to control they already have control on it, but they're going to put a lock on it, right?
Mhm.
And they are going to control the movement of the people, right? That's what they're going to do. They're going to control the everyday lives of the Belizean people. They are going to be soul masters, and I won't be surprised that they are going to enshrine in the Constitution that they are not supposed to be challenged. In any, they will be kings forever.
I would know that.
Don't be surprised the way these guys are. That wouldn't surprise me, right? But if I live long enough and they live long enough to push through their agenda, my heart goes out for the ones who will be left to hold that bukut, right? So I just hope that the people's eyes are open, you know, right? Because it's high noon now that people see through these people, man. The Belizean people see through their agenda, see through the way they strong us, see through that how they pass his laws, right? See who benefits in this country because of the laws they pass against the people and nation, right? They do it all the time. They mess with the Constitution, they play with it, and they have no regards for it, in my view. They have no regards for the Constitution based on the things that I see they have done and continue to do, right? Our Prime Minister, the leader of this nation, he has no regards for the Constitution, in my view, right? He think that he is it. He think that he can do and say anything, answer he wants, and say what he want to say, and dismiss who he want to dismiss. Like, you know, he is put there by a different entity, a different force, right? Not by the, he wasn't put, seemed like he wasn't put there by the people, because he does not answer to the people. Only when he wants to show the people to support his party, that's when he comes down to earth and lie again, that he loved Belize and loved the people, and this is what he's going to do for the people. These things are played out, man. So played out on both parties, both sides. Because none of them is good for Belize, in my view, right? But this whole thing about reforming the Constitution or changing the Constitution and the message they're putting out there, let's look at the people who they has on their committee, who they selected, and people who they didn't want to come in, brought into the committee, right? Look who they have running as the chairman of the Constitution Reform Committee, right? A well-known PUP, right? You think he's going to go contrary to what Roseno tell him to do? Hell no, right? You think he's going to go contrary to what Henry Charles Usher tell him to do? Hell no, that's his son-in-law. These people got to be ashamed of themselves, man, right? You know, like I say, Mr. Chairman and Leonard, these people gonna, you know, these people gonna do to us what we let them do to us, and they're gonna get what they want at the end of the day, right? So I'm totally against what they're doing. I am totally against in constitutional reform, because in my view, I didn't see anything wrong with our constitution. What I see wrong is with them, what they are doing. That's the wrong I see, right? And that's where the emergency state of emergency should be, right? Make them check themselves. That's a state of emergency because they're doing wrong to this country, right? But anyway, I'll say no more. Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. If you recall, I said, and we all know, for them consultation meaning, my good cousin, how much time had we spoken about a plebiscite? They could have used a plebiscite.
You want to see Sharon back? Leonard? Oh.
I think what is happening.
I was trying to call her, but I don't get no response from her.
Oh.
Yeah. You're gonna go ahead, Greg, and then go.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yes, I believe after we have this conversation and we have speak about the rightful way of doing constitution reform and a plebiscite to see if the people want, and then a referendum. I have no doubt in my mind. I believe that this consultation that they're having is a plebiscite. They're using this consultation as a plebiscite, and I will tell you why.
But they can't.
Yes, but I will show you how. I will show you how. When we went to the meeting, right, we were given a pamphlet that is a survey. And I start reading through it. They wanted you to fill it out, sign it, and turn it in. I did not turn mine in. I went over it. But what caught my attention was in section 12. And I sent a picture to my cousin. In section 12, they boldly ask you, Mr. Wade, would you like to take the Governor General out and elect a president? No, if the people of Belize just go there and tick that, that's what they're looking for.
How many years and how many months have I not been saying that? So they finally put it in black and white to us. A bunch of rascals.
Right. But when you have people that have not read the Constitution and they go and they listen to these meetings and you give them a pamphlet, cannot read the Constitution, you know they will not be able to read the survey that good, and you have there in black and white, would you want to remove the Governor General and then elect a president? You know what you are doing? You are urging them. That's what I'm saying, and I keep stating that the government is trying to turn the Belizean people into sovereign citizens because that's the opinion that he wants to hear. If you make the mistake and you just stick that, you know what you just did? You are saying yes to replace the Governor General with an elected president. Plain and simple. So, Belizeans at home and abroad, be careful of the survey they are giving you. They are saying, oh, it's just a simple survey. Read the survey. Section 12 is asking you if you want to remove your Governor General and replace her with an elected president. That is simple thing. Once you tell them yes, they are looking for you to help them achieve their agenda. Which countries have elected president? Republics. Go ahead, Leonard.
Just quickly, what is? Oh, I think Sharon must have been trying to come in. Yeah, let me bring her in, please. Give me a second.
Yes, bring her in back and let her continue.
Okay, sorry about this. No, this device.
You can continue from where you were, Sharon, if you can
Okay, so
recall what you were
basically
trying to
what
say.
they do, they took the state of the Belize is defined in the constitution, all our territory, and by extension, anything further that we could claim in international law, like with the law of the sea, Post 81, 82, the UNCLOS conference, right? So that they pass the Maritime Areas Bill, then they tell the people first, we not they give up with a claim, but they really made a try fence in the country. Then what they did next was to say, let us go to the ICJ, and they even bring in support. They say, oh, Mr. Golson said, go to the ICJ. But the man that Philip
right.
Golson was, his position was that he would have looked at sovereignty independence and say, you know, surrender your sovereignty. And may I say, stand up and defend Belize. So I just use that as an illustration how.
Sharon,
Yes,
because you
sir.
brought up that point just now, for the general public, can I clarify? Quick statement. Mr. Golson was never about going to the ICJ the way these clowns are trying to take us to the ICJ right now. With all these giveaways to the Guatemalans and these new agreements. He wanted for us to go to the ICJ like the British wanted us to do, to validate the treaty that the British had.
The Treaty of 1859.
Right.
Yes, and uphold our sovereignty with the defense guarantee.
He wasn't talking about going to the ICJ under the conditions that these knuckleheads have included us and put us under. Mr. Golson was not that kind of mindset person. He was too cautious for that kind of shenanigan. But I just wanted to show because people are trying to misquote the man and are trying to. But anyhow, sorry.
While other people are alive who know, and while his record and clear stance is historical, right? Why I take the time to say that was so that you see how things are presented to the people as though it's good for them. Now, with respect to this constitutional exercise, right? They dared to do that. So they have us at ICJ, they may tell people like any other court you go. But that's not so. It's your sovereignty. In international law, you cannot. And if you go, once you go, there's no appeal, right? And 15 men in navy blue suits who you don't know. I don't know if they have women now will decide your country fit. Then the result is binding. So that, to my mind, is treacherous, and it goes against, and I think it's one of the best examples we can give of what would be a basic structure and the public trust doctrine in our constitution. That
exactly.
Sacrosanct. Do not touch that. So they gone and then they run with that. So now the danger again now another thing they come along where they're saying, you know what? The constitution, I believe, is in it fix, write it. Well, are the politicians and the leaders who need to write themselves, because the constitution only as good as those who will uphold it. I want to get into something with respect to one of the rights.
Exactly, Sharon. Exactly.
There's nothing when the leaders and the diplomats get the country in trouble. Speak to the people, listen to the people, and be the voice of the people, and trust the people at Belize. They will help us to get the country out of whatever they try to put us in. So now, with respect to property, Mr. Brackett and Mr. Brackett, you all looked at the cases you mentioned, right? And I want to say that the example given Saturday was totally wrong and against the interests of the people and country of Belize. And I have to say it so, no, because we know to play with foolishness, the life and survival of our people and country. You mentioned those cases, and really and truly it's a part of our law that the government are not autocrats, right? They're not ruled by decree. You're not just deprive people of property. In other places and nationalize companies out, no? Now, what we have in those cases is see the protection by the English common law. Too, you have the mineral rights which are reserved for the country and citizens, the public or the crown. And as well, you have the seashores and so on, right? So there has always been that. But if you try, if you have land and government want to move over it, if you pay your royalty, come to a contract or something. If you
Exactly.
have land and they use like the public acquisition, the Acquisition of Land for Public Purposes Act, right? They tried that to say, you know what, with the acquired, let's say they set a bill on Ball Court, right? One Ball Park. But later on, for something else. That is not a public purpose, so you could challenge that constitutionally. In addition, there was a San Jose Farmers case in the Supreme Court a couple decades ago, no time flies fast. And the court said very clearly, not only you can't acquire people land that way, if they're not for public purpose, it gone, right? That impugn, that is null and void.
Sharon?
If it is for a public purpose and you acquire it, you have to pay or compensate market value.
Exactly.
Market value at the time of the judgment, not the acquisition.
Sharon?
Yes, Mr. Brackett?
To clarify one point.
Yes, sir.
Before you move off of that point, it is not the government that decides whether a public purpose is correct or not. They can stipulate it, but if that matter is taken to court, it is only the court that has the jurisdiction under the separation of powers.
Right.
Totally correct.
Exactly.
Clarify
the Constitution
whether or not the government was correct.
gives the
Okay.
court that and the separation of powers.
Could you get closer to the phone a little bit? Oh man, I wonder. I hope not.
I mean, that is sacrosanct. So that is.
You're breaking up there, Ms. Sharon.
Yeah. If you could get a little closer to the phone, that might help a little bit. But you can't hear me. Oh man, I hope she's not gone again, because just anything they get good.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You see now, gentlemen.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yes.
So where we'll come back to, and you see how important it is that look at that Saturday presentation and look at Mr. Brackett and Mr. Brackett having
could you bring your phone a little closer to you? Sharon,
what?
No, that's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So what happened?
Can you repeat that?
It's great that you took the time to research and write on those cases. Now look at Saturday. We had the presenter saying that his example of limitation on the Constitution as a tax, what you call it, a tax advisor in his legal field. He is saying, well, the city council is right to take away people's property and auction it off for non-payment of tax. In my view, we have to go back to the very Constitution, which that preamble, not just there, the spirit of the Constitution is infused. And I don't have it before me, but you will see it says required policies of state. So when it comes to people land,
it's not an arbitrary and capricious issue.
But we, especially when I look to defending the poor, the voiceless, right? You have Belize City, right? This back way, see people in a new poverty. You have a lot of land we tie up in families, right? The grass they grow. People can't afford to pay the taxes, right? And they have to be careful when they talk, because when you hear tax member, there was a tea party, a certain place, right? So the representational aspect is there too. And really and truly, my daughter to the council one time to say, you know what, you don't have street or water, light service to that person's land. So how can you be taking taxes or demanding taxes? Then Mr. Brackett said something important before we were on here and reminded me that one time they used to go to the court first and give people a chance. That brings another aspect of the rule of law into play.
Exactly. Exactly.
Due
Good faith
process
and public
against
trust.
arbitrary, or these people taking what they think is law and lambasting and being cruel with the people. I was up at city. I have never gone there, but I went to deal with something. Somebody had asked me. So the man who was there impromptu started telling me, I said, it's wrong. You take Belize City. Haven't you considered that people just can't afford the tax? Then I will tell you this. I told him in certain places they have security of tenure programs for people. If the property tied up in a state, you find ways. This is how you find ways and means to help people. And I will mention Mr. Brackett because years and years ago, while some people were at their pre-election day political rally, Mr. Brackett was with my mother, my aunt, my elder cousin, and a couple younger people, showing us something about how you could improve Belize to raise the land. You don't have to take in sea and give somebody the sea and tax credits and so on. So that, to my mind, is how you defend your country with your brains and with compassionate democracy and having regard to the policies of state. Then,
Well, they
to
did
make it
follow through with
work,
a little bit of it, though, but not very much. They did the
yes, but
streets.
you
It was
see
covert.
everything that you come with. You have hustlers who will bastardize and vulgarize your idea. Then right now, what I know, and I wanted to say Saturday, but I think by then the man had gone, no? But I wanted to say to him very strongly that I know, and I will say to you, Belizeans, I did the brief for now, that while I was saying that, the person said, oh, well, you know what? We have this Asian person and this businessman checking to see about certain property, and we had to tell them, well, then people pay their tax, and then cut down their land. So now for not cutting down your land, and I tell them cutting down your land, Belize is the most fertile land in this country after the Nile Delta in Africa. Most valuable land, but they want the people to be poor so they disenfranchise the people with the very value of the land. That, to my mind, is unconstitutional. The law was never meant to deprive people of property in that way, right? Then with the Constitution again, I just want to run this through, Mr. Brackett, not to forget. You mentioned R and Hines out of Jamaica and all, landmark case. From Belize, we had race appeal case. And you see that part with the right to life?
Right.
We were going before the court, and you were having the law, the criminal code, and it stipulated somebody found guilty of murder, death by hanging.
And that's why
After a while, some people said, you know what? That is against the Constitution of Belize. It's inhumane. Some people don't believe in that. Some believe in that. Some say, you know what? We are not God. We don't put nobody to death. So you had case before the Supreme Court. And now it is that before any judge can pronounce death, you must have a hearing. And all the people who were convicted, those death sentences were automatically commuted following on that case, right?
But
with respect to, go ahead, Mr. Brackett, sorry.
It is exactly what you just described there, Sharon. Yes. The reason why Belize departed from the Privy Council and came to the Caribbean Court of Justice as the final court of appeal, because of this death penalty issue. You recall that?
But I tell you something,
okay,
Mr. Brackett, the politicians, the sitting AGs, left, right, and center, and everybody want me to tell people, get rid of that relic from the colonial past. You know, one of the things I told a man on the street, when you got the Caribbean Court of Justice, you see why the crime, the spiral out of control? That because we know they hang there high. And they promised the people that the Privy Council may cause that, and the Privy Council not in touch. So the politicians who don't understand that the law in society is such that they put the very things in place which create crime, and we as a people must take charge of ourselves, right? Because we can't say people to do it to it. But they want us to give up on our young people, and if this done not ethnic cleansing is ethnic dilution. But I get to something else. So CCJ come in, and you know what CCJ do? CCJ never one day say, and I'm saying it in layman terms, they never stand in the way of somebody being hung, right? Another thing, when the freedom of movement, right? They have policemen on Vernon Street who will stop you. And then do what they know and do that Bella Vista in a King's Park. Where you going? One man, a friend of mine, said, you know what? No, unless there's reasonable suspicion, you're either about to commit a crime
Exactly.
or commit. They shouldn't. When I was
Right.
coming from Corozal one time, they asked me by boom, it looked like them, and they look for people where they contraband. The police said, where you coming from? Now, I don't know if he was friendly or not, but as a person who will preserve rights and constitutional rights, I said, I'm going about my freedom of movement in my country. My friend, the man tell the policeman on Vernon Street, I'm going to your house, I'm going to mind your business, I'm going to visit your wife. The policeman gets vexed. But they don't do these things in Bella Vista. Another feature is that you see those green and yellow painted small cement buildings popping up on private commercial properties. That's mark of a police state. And
but it's illegal
they,
too.
under the British, no businessman may say, usually booth, they would have said, you know what? We will rent that booth from you, or we will build on national property. Another thing about freedom of movement, right? They say in the Cayman, I think they're still British. The story is told anecdotally. When a lady in Ghana and visit, he say, then tell the people, right? If anybody build on your beach, the Krong Reserve, right? Walk on it, open the kitchen door, walk through the living room, and if the bedroom they're on the right away, walk through it. We have this thing with so-called people that tell you it happened to Key Chapel,
on the beach, you can't go swim at the beach.
other places. It happened to me at Key Chapel as a sixth farmer, and I told the person was sorry enough to come. I said, send your boss, and I like the barbecue for me and my friends there. But that was Martha property. It happened at City River, where they call Hopkins, which is really City River. We were on the beach and somebody come and have to move. The people at Jaguar Reef. I said, why? Oh, then they look for having a wedding and in the way, and this at the hotel beach. I said, no. So we end up stay far longer than we want to stay. We say, you know what? And we run the thing, this is a Belizean property. And if you had asked, we the people of Portes to women, I say, okay, we like the wedding man, even if you know they get black cake, you know, enjoy the beach for the wedding, but ask with politeness. Why I'm taking time to say this, right? One of the things that my environmental law program impressed on me, in Africa and these places, when they went after the oil and the people land, when the things start to happen, they say crime, right? They use the national forces against the people. When you hear about Waterloo and then they put the project proposal, they start to talk, oh, they want the people behave well because, you know, and in a tourism, right? Then they want to use the excuse that they use your police force and your private security. And when they bring in foreign workers, sometimes there will be private security who will stay. One thing I want to say in New Orleans.
Sharon, quickly. Quickly. I take them. Then bring in the BDF to load the ship then so that the CVDers and not get their job or get PF to do the job.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. With respect to the stevedores, right? Man. When I go on a market such a man, I really get one good feel of Belizeans then, right? Then they have $1 a day drive. People class there as well. Then people lazy or sit them on the street. Them man usually they up. They work gang shift for days and they have built this country, right? But what they want to do, take with pride and dignity, move the port. And when I was saying to Mr. Usher, who is attorney for one of the port, the port authority, which is a statutory body, the trend is, you know, they go for government-owned to statutory body, then they privatize land port, airport, seaport, and those things are Belizean patrimony, Philip Golson would have said, inalienable against the Constitution. They are open-ended revenue earners, so that for the people, job, everything, and they are national and international security.
But right now,
No.
Sharon, right now, the Belize port, where Mr. Ashraf have under receivership, does not belong to him. Ownership and receivership are not one and the same. There's a technical, legal difference. And for we government,
And I want to tell you
follow my
something.
advice to go and try and find a way to get the money and take back report from a man. So for we
You say about the waking the sleeping giant. I want to tell you something. I hear that man, you know, then only snatch your patch, whether for you, you know, if you're not careful, even way thing they were bind with. Like I hear he got quarter farm the Tapir or mountain call we got for him family slogan and sleep with your own tour. You think them people they play? We better understand where they catch we. But what I wanted to say, in New Orleans, they said when the big highways came, the multi-lane, they said post-slavery, the blacks, newly freed, they used to go on the greens or the commons, right? And picnic and then go to church. And so all those things were the strength of our people. And then, you know, they have counseling, they break bread, they share food, you know, they commiserate, somebody need house, somebody need legal defense, all those things, and they celebrate their culture, right? As part of the American fabric. So when they move their things through, they cut, and they said there's a direct correlation, and these were Caucasian professors saying, to how crime went in New Orleans. The casinos came in and other things, right? And the rum shops, which are the things you will be guaranteed to find in your neighborhoods, right? Then they want you to call the place to get on, you give up on the people, right? So in Bahamas, they have it different. That's why when they were saying Bahamas, I said I don't know where they talk about, but I couldn't get to it. The Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that one country where I gone and I check in, you know, the people that barely need visa or want visa. But they protect their people. You not ban there of a foreigner and get citizenship.
Exactly.
For the first 8 years of your life, or elect when you're 18, or if you marry a Bahamian. In other words, they say that as sacrosanct, that's a birthright. They protect it, right? Another thing I want to say, especially since we have Belizean Americans,
we are being
Philip Golson was fighting for long for the right to vote of Belizean Americans. Then come with foolishness about remissions. Nobody don't have to remittances. You don't have to remit nothing. Belizean Americans fought for this country. Naval string barrier, salt and Belizean to protect Belizeans at home and abroad, preserve the culture in touch. A lot of independent-minded people. And they want to devalue. Then they talk about, well, oh, and I heard a diplomat one time, I was so disappointed. I was admiring a young lady. And then he said, well, just like, you know, live certain place in certain states, you shouldn't vote. That is different. And then what we have people who want to come and buy. And I think citizenship by that is wrong too. It's against the Constitution in my view. So then get your citizenship, then to vote in their other country of origin. So with respect to citizenship, Belizeans abroad should be able to vote, and especially, and I would say in particular, I'm specifying, my caveat is people who are of earlier generations. Why I say that? Because with their sailor passports, you don't know how much passport they sell out there. So they might neutralize the So caution when you ask the thing and know what we have to deal with, right? So having said that, no, with respect to this exercise, I call it one experiment with the Constitution, that they're taking our people to at a time when we have on the international front certain things. Then the Belizean identity, you notice Mr. Paul Rodriguez
To a
was
new identity, no?
stressing we are diverse, we have diversity. Well, you know,
Yeah.
in international law, Mr. Brackett want to tell you, no, when you condone tribal-based conflict, one Belizean identity is the thing which will pull us through. One country, one identity. And Dr. Awa, when he went to court with that so-called Mayan land rights, I'll tell you, an email came to me from a foreign attorney in the US to represent Mayan land rights. That was when email still faded. Later on, Lois Young said, you should have said, I not answer that because when I was at Tulane in the US, somebody came and said, oh, they will take up that case in Belize. I got up because me I no diplomat, me not get paid from government, but I'm a born Belizean, and that's why I
Mm-hmm.
defend. When I was in the US, in my room, though nobody come in my bedroom, I have the same size US flag as my Belize flag because I understand and have a respect.
Respect. Right.
If they flag me different size,
Mm-hmm.
the American one
Respect.
would have been bigger because you respect people's country and you expect the same reciprocity. So what we had now is that this thing about with citizenship, it wasn't being explained properly at all. Birthright and so on, right? So it's like, oh, once you're there, that's how I may get it. Well, everybody have the same right. No, it's not because we come in the some exercise the same rights, due process and so on, right? Freedom of movement in and out. Object, of course, you present your passport or other thing. But Belize is a country who, by virtue of birthright or citizenship, if you did at the airport one time, if I don't like fly planes, so I couldn't find my passport. The lady look at me and said, Miss Fitz, you don't have to worry, that Belizean, you don't need passport for enter here. That is the tie that binds, that is the public trust. That is your
Sharon,
not
Sharon,
filius nullius, you're not a child of none, you're a child of your patria, your country.
you make a laugh just now because I remember one time I was driving. I came to Belize in my truck, right? And then I was driving back out of the country, and I went like 400 miles into Mexico. And the federalists then turned me back and they said I was short of a new paper that they need, and I have to go back to the border, go get it from the border people. When I get that in border, then tell me they can't give it to me there. I got to get it from the consulate at the country where I just come out of, which is Belize. So I had to try to go back in Belize now. The Belize custom people tell me that I can't come, immigration, they tell me I can't come back in Belize because I just check out. And Sharon, I don't have to tell her what and day after that. I mean, had the Prime Minister number, Mr. Esquivel at the time, right? So I just called him and I tell her, you know what? Talk to these idiots here before I have to get myself in a real trouble and really have to be arrested for cause. And idiot, and tell me, I as a born Belizean, coming out of Mexico to come back because I need paperwork in order to continue my journey, that I can't come back in my own country. And the Constitution said that they're not supposed to stop me from coming to my country or leave my country. Man, I tell you, I went on bad. I don't know how they man ever arrest me. To the point
because
where
they know that they have called more people to stand up.
Esquivel called back and I tell the young man, let me in. Which he should not have to have done that. But
no.
And if I never have his number after making call, apparently then and try physically deny me my personal entry back into my country. What the hell am I expect I to do? It's not the middle of the bridge for the rest of my life because I can't come or can't go. Bunch of idiots.
Or sneak back into your country. One thing I wanted to say. Sorry, Mr.
I have a question. Mr. Chairman. Can I ask?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Sharon, I want to ask you your take on this notion that this says that you're a Belizean American and you want to participate in Parliament, you got to give up your U.S. citizenship. Well, what you?
No way.
What's your take on that?
Birthright. That's birthright. What my take on it? You want to know my take on it? They should uphold the Constitution to the effect that nobody born in that enemy regime to the west, compass west, should have Belizean citizenship and should not run for office.
But the man
had both political sides of the red and blue. And also red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue that with country, right?
I will call them. The man stand up in our house, in our assembly there, and tell we craziness. Then couldn't left the Guatemalans then without a country. So they had to violate free constitution to give them citizenship. What kind of craziness?
So
it's illegal. Every Belizean should be able to serve this country. That is birthright. That is just
the reason why I asked you. Reason why I asked you, Sharon, I contested Kayo South twice, back then, right? As on a convention with the People's United Party and thing, right? But anyway, it was then I went independent in 2008. They refused me a convention with Julius Espat and they endorsed him, and I went the other way and I went independent. And from then on, they say, well, you cannot put your name down to run for that's what, and that's how they have me right now. So you want to tell me now, if I put my name in the next general election, if Roody Wade put his name down again to contest for a representative, do I have that right to do that?
Let me tell you, I would do it. In the case of Marilyn Williams, she put her name down and she ran as a candidate. She was defeated by Marcus Pat, but I think the two newspaper of the Blue Do-Rag that came up just before election, I think they played a game to say they brought out this thing that like she would be disqualified after the fact. So they left it that way in order to try and ambush her, right? But I would say put your name down and run for election. Because
this time around, guys, I will fight them all the way to the Supreme Court this time around.
Then I want to say something, right? With
respect so that's for the public out there now.
Yes, with respect to freedom of movement. You notice there are things that we say we go to court for to defend and uphold the Constitution. But there are certain things you have to be strategic with, right? Because sometimes they try to, and I've been told sometimes if you're not like what they do, if it take away your property, go to court, and ironically, they end up suing me when I settle with their head. But that's another story, right? But vindication and quiet and do the court and get exposed, and I never grovel to anybody, right? But why I'm saying this, remember down the Sarstoon, when there are people who protect citizenry, go down there to exercise their right to movement. Remember one time a statutory instrument, state of emergency, whatever, passed in conjunction
illegal
to limit movement, and they might have said, oh, national security interest. But
it was illegal.
Certain person came to me, right, and said, we want to challenge it in court. And I said, I believe that statutory instrument is illegal. But you have to watch things, right?
And I
did a one-man ticket at Albert Street against it, right? But I said to the person, be careful, right? Because you have to watch the effect of certain things on your country, right? They were trying to hold off from that location, but in that the minister, and I think it was Minister Faber or somebody, I don't want to call the wrong name, sometimes my memory not good, passed a statutory instrument, or whoever did, let me Saldiva. So in that was passed, what happened is that ironically, right, they did Belize country a favor. Why? And like me as an attorney, I say get one second opinion if you wish, because it was important. But the thing is that in passing that statutory instrument, he was passing an administrative, legal, illegal, but he was ironically, right, with the coordinates of the location. That was an act saying that that is within Belize, towards a part of Belize, sovereign territory. And these are the things which you look to follow, so that the thing would have been freedom of movement then. But the bigger thing was that constitutionally, right, we were Trump, it was a blessing in disguise. If we had gone to court, what might the court have said? Should we have taken the risk, get a win, and the court say, like when the doctor did the surgery successful, but the treatment kill you after? Would we have gone to court and maybe the court say, and depending how you argue your case sometimes, right? That well, you're right. Strike it down. Then the other side, the enemy side, they listen to we court more than us, you know.
Mhm.
When you had the Mayan land rights case,
The-
that case, to my mind, is an affront, but you see what I do?
Sharon, before you go to that one, I
Mhm.
want to go back to Mr. Weird situation.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's
Just before,
important.
so
Sorry.
we don't go too far away from it. I just want to
Mhm.
connect it. The issue of telling you what they tell you is not because they don't know better and know that they're telling you what is wrong. They do so strategically because by the time if you actually decide to fight them and ask for a court date and a hearing, the election would have been passed and you would not have allowed to run. And even when after the election you get to win the case, you still can't run again until the next cycle around. So
Mhm.
all they were doing with you was playing a power game on you as a matter of strategic and timing. The same thing I do with these 30-day size. They size them. Not they so use them sometimes, some of them too. But they size
Good.
them. 30 days, and they know that you can't get one hearing within 30 days to validate. And at the time when you won't get one hearing, if you persist, the 30 days is up, so they not renew it or they not bother it. They just stop you for as long as they could stop you. Strategically, you lose your timing. It's a game. They know what they're doing.
But
Go ahead, sorry.
isn't that exactly what is happening with the 11th Amendment right now and Mr. Barrow?
Yes, yes.
That is one of the craziest move I have ever seen. A slap in the PCC face. That is
Exactly.
so ridiculous.
They are going by ambush, and I hold no brief for Shine Barrow,
Neither
but
do I.
they are going by ambush in the house while this
But I'm
so-called,
defending
they're
right.
going through the motions, then they bring that up. They have the super majority, so they call it. And then on the other side, you have a weak opposition, a WEAK in capital in the sense of how many people are sitting in the house. And it seems one person doesn't attend anyway. And I was saying to somebody, you know what? It's a right, a duty, and a privilege to represent the people. You could talk, you could cuss to your people, and you know if you follow the parliamentary procedures and you would be reined in by the speaker and schooled by your fellow parliamentarians and the people, but the people's voice must be heard. When Mr. Golson was in there alone, he spoke, I don't remember how much hours, still hold a record for the longest speaking, whether being named or otherwise. Now, with respect to that,
Right.
11th Amendment thing, what they're trying to say, right? You could have anybody, right, who commit the worst crime out there. You want give that person when a band of Belize, who come from a system which is anathema under a abandoned curse from your God-fearing system where we are a haven of democracy, example of humanity. You are strip one Belizean who offer to serve
Exactly.
and who has
Uh-huh.
paid his debt to society. But you know what? Mr. Brackett, somebody, one old lady remind me of something. Remember Derek Aikman?
Yes, yes.
He had so much,
Perfect example.
he had his
Mhm.
own 100 feet of clay, he had whatever people would say of him. But how do you, when you do that, they're not hear you despite, you're depriving the country and nation and people of Belize of the right to make that decision. So when they talk about right to vote and so on, it go in a one different section. But so to my mind, those things should extend the policies and practices of state should extend in those
Mhm.
features and elements, building up and entrenching and galvanizing the constitution and make the people decide. So that's our
Right.
excellent example of, and then it makes it that the whole process is suspect, right? Because then they play one game and like then that's why I say like the government they show to people, you know what? We don't give we stick for broken the back, but we did do this for help, Then look at the process, right? Can people ask questions in a meaningful way? and then the presentation, right? The agenda. What are being thrown out as the examples? Getting back to that so-called Mayan lands right case, it was Dr. Awe who probably had one lot of Mayan DNA, if you want to call it that, right? We're all make new make God make with a one Belizean people. But he in court as an expert was unassailable and saying that the indigenous people of Belize are the Creole people. And when it traced certain people there and they're of different ethnicities and origins than the actual people in Belize. So they are not indigenous to Belize. I say this without any qualms because I have been advising the Creole Council, and I was saying open
That's
before
true.
advising them, the Belizean people at large, the one common Belizean identity, because the elephant in the room is that ICJ, and that will get us to two. If you deal with people not compartmentalized, because for we Creole indigenous, and you can have the simple way, the 60-second sermon or stance, anything we in the constitution, unravel. I mean, the original. And when it comes to rights, no other people have any rights better than we. So if you know to give Mayan or to give somebody right, give Creole rights. Then that gets at the thing. East Indian, Garifuna, other people. So you see how it becomes tricky. Then so they said they passed something after the court with respect to the Mayans. That is wrong. It's an egregious violation of our constitution. It goes against and it's balkanizing our people, and it's it's in the guise to fracture our country. And if people don't want to see that, we don't have I catch we by surprise. I know I say I catch you by surprise. Belizean look fool if they think so. But when it comes to certain things, Belizean we not got common sense. We have intuition based on the love of this country. Canal water we smell, the sea water we breathe in, the land where we eat the fruits from.
Sharon, Mr. Chairman, can I quickly
yes, go ahead.
Talking about the Mayan situation that Sharon brought up? There's a major problem.
Yes,
with that
sir. Go ahead.
Because many of those people who are living in this present Maya community, as you rightfully said, Sharon, are not the original and Mayan people from that group. Some of them came across the Belize to live with their compadres and friends, and other Mayan compadres, when the Guatemalan army was slaughtering them by the tens and hundreds of thousands. Okay? And they never went back. Some of them went back after the stopped, and others did not go back. They stayed in Belize, and now it appears that the Mayans that were there are trying to claim that all of them as Mayas together are entitled to the whole of PG and Stan Creek. I mean, not PGMs, Toledo and Stan Creek. That is the impression, and part of Cayo as well. That is the impression that they are trying to convey now in the context of this land rights thing that they ruled. Okay,
so that is my disappointment with the CCJ, because as an officer of the court, I will be respectful, but as a Belizean, I will speak my Belizean truth. Who may ask we, the other the real indigenous people with position on that, right? And then I am of a firm view that the United Kingdom Privy Council would never have done that, right? Would never have. So
exactly.
We have kept it in a historical context.
I'm grateful because I almost forgot. That was one of the main things that come out of the CCJ early for Belize.
The same thing I kept it right now with this Guatemalan claim against us at the ICJ. Then he had to tell me that they are prepared to give the ICJ everything that they need in order for the case to be properly settled. And I'm saying, and have been saying from then to them and to everybody that will listen to me and hear me, that we are not presenting an adequate and proper defense. We're not putting things in historical context.
Mr. Brackett, I have said that they have sold out this country. We have people who look like they take this country for Doti Dayapa. We have people who have loyalty to this country. We have people who and the one elitist group
Mr.
who
Mr.
going over.
Golson had said that before. Mr.
Mhm.
Golson had said about the sale of this country before he
But
died. He said that.
I just had
Documentary.
this conversation
He
with
wrote
you
a book,
guys Friday night.
Pattern of Betrayal.
Yes, I just have this conversation with them, and I told them we are working with the enemy within that is working for Guatemala,
You
and
know
it's
what they call
proven.
that? You know what they call that? Fifth columnist. Fifth.
Right?
So we have fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth columnists. And the same one are there where they talk there. And all people, I wanted to say this Saturday, you know how they say for we politicians or diplomats they play chess while they play checkers while other
Well,
people they play
yeah,
chess. I
yeah.
don't think so. For we people they
Both
play
sides sell out.
checkers. For we politicians they play Chinese checkers.
Yes.
Read what you want into that. And with politicians they play snake and ladders with sovereignty, while everybody else out there they play chess. We have to love this country more than anybody else. And Belizeans have in my mind one gift and it has to do with your birthright, a God-given gift that when
Uh-huh.
we come together in love for this country and respect for we people, we prevail, but by the grace of God too, because and you see, you get back to the one certain person where like talk and given one voice or come with we must take that out. Then where is the council of churches? I don't like call out churches,
They sell out.
but Saturday I
Sell out.
asked
Sell
about
out.
Good Friday because when they do they test
They
you
fight among
on
themselves and then sell
ministerial
out.
decree. Huh?
They fight among themselves and then sell out. Look
I
at how
see
they're
what
behaving in
you're
the
saying,
Senate.
and some of them
Look at how
they
they
are
behave in the
slips.
Senate.
Some of them their slips are showing and they are of a certain color and
Yeah.
not red. And Creole say, with due respect, some people got blue drawers, and I'm saying it because that's the only way you could say it, right? So whatever coverage
Mm-hmm.
or cloak they have, that is it. So they don't have teeth, they don't have backbone, and some simple things. The people right there expecting certain things, and when you talk about Good Friday and you go and attack that because that has to do not just with religious tradition, but the one central cultural tradition you have said because of tourism. And who else? Romparaho. Even the rum people they want a little time to get and live a rest. And they want to catch up when they start to drink again, right? So,
Gross violation.
and I get to something too. You notice what I was saying, give away free. And when Musa came with it more than 10 years ago, me don't even remember how long. I said, right for Lick Road, they want to give away the weed. I know different people smoke and people have different view, but it has in THC or some kind of thing. And it's psychotropic. Not everybody can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
I said,
Right?
the opiate of the masses are not religion for we that has helped our people, the spirit of God and God-fearing people and our Sunday school culture. But they claim 45% of children still out of school after COVID, barring the holidays, of course. And what they're doing is that this, I said, and one take away senses and give away the senses. But if you move around Belize and then some people mix things and then you see an picnic with that weed thing, I don't usually do it, but I actually call a radio station, and amongst what I said was have a commission of inquiry. But right away, somebody called me after. That's a waste of time because they only do that when so and so. That's a hope for we people stay, and they look like us who will say that, right? So, what do we defend as a people? If we can't defend the children from certain things, right? Then they want to put these alternative lifestyle things in our books, right? But in our school curriculum, right? In our
So
curricula
right.
and
Right on
standardize
that.
it. Then the teachers at remember we picnic got us Sunday school like one time. So the people who they push this thing, our reality is that pregnant women they inhale weed. One lot of the humble homes that still want sheet instead of partition. or the top the partition, right? All right to somebody right for smoke that, not limited to somebody right for the pollution or drift from the air over your fence, in your window, and you get high on that. Then when you see people running around, walking around, females zombie like in Belize, and you go hear, well, this one somebody may get the weed. And I will tell you, if anything could shock you now, right? There was a 6-year-old looking girl child last year who went to a certain Asian shop in a corner in Belize City, can buy punta paper. And I want to tell you, I'm proud of the shopkeeper because she, I don't think she may even
Somebody say now.
got chance to say no or maybe so, because the adults in the neighborhood, one voice say, legal, go home. Now, who
Mm-hmm.
crazy to send you for buy that? You see what is happening with our children? Innocence being taken away at that level. And then when that become the norm, the people they drink the Lee rum, me not remember what they call it, they got different name, and the elephant foot, somebody said that the mountain cow foot. Okay, Belize was built up on rum and mahogany chips. That's a part of our culture. And I think the best export world class in that. But the thing is, right, the people who we have a problem with high blood sugar, they kill out with people. Gunshot, they kill out with people, right? As I said, with the dead
Mm-hmm.
from a young age now, such a that I realize that ethnic dilution, ethnic cleansing, right? And as I said to Mr. Paul Rodriguez, because sometimes I have to bring this home, if we look after one another. And I don't know if I'm a mistake, but the Moors from Africa invaded Spain, so all are with the one people. So when you want to think of the things, I'm not saying he, but when I think, then they do think to the black people who claim to be black and the others feel well, we are something else, and that not happen. The very place, the heart of our culture, this backway sea where the delta, there the life source, the cultural and commercial capital, the people who usually lead the holding on to the country charge. And when the Kenyans come in and say, because then that the first line of physical defense, and up north our friendly neighbor Mexico there, and down south our waters there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our nation, our country tend to go cap in hand. As Belizean Americans, shouldn't you all be saying, you know what? In your goodwill to America and calling in our history and heritage, the leaders don't even want to read history. Isn't it that even Emory King, who made his home here, could remind where history
Have one history.
1723, the people at the Bay sold mahogany and logwood support the war effort in the US? And isn't the old church in Boston, doesn't it have a pew reserved for gentlemen of the Bay? And it's the same church where Paul Revere, or some said that black man, rang the bell to warn and freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And the Boston Tea Party
Exactly.
Right.
Constitution, all Ironside was built of wood. Some say reputed it, some mahogany,
Good
another
from
wood
Belize.
from the Bay of Belize, and it
Mm-hmm.
went into 32 battles. Your the Oliver Holmes, is that his name? The Chief Justice of Oliver Wyndham Holmes of the United
Long
States.
time
I
ago.
went on All Ironsides twice. He wrote a 4 stanza poem to All Ironsides, my grandfather, and I'm calling it, wrote 34 stanzas. The battle and the flag to our Battle of St. George's Key. And when you look at it, we have some things in common, right? We take the best thing and we forge ahead, right? Now,
We've always done
getting
that.
back to Belize, sorry, any other questions? We can listen more, and that might be a better way,
Um,
right? Uh-huh.
No, man, you got
we
you go
kind of
ahead, man. No,
we
no,
run
we're
out of
glad to
time.
have you.
We
So,
run out of time already, and so I
uh-huh.
want to ask if I could give
So,
a
well,
chance.
one thing is that then people back spread out with people mouth. The pantry program made too good for the people, right? It was considered an example throughout the Caribbean. And then like Jankro Buzzard, people, you know, and I don't like to utter it,
Mm.
price of egg, then it sell for 50 cents each. But we people may know if plant, then tell you can't plant, then give land to foreigners who we welcome here, then give them the land, right? Then they try and move the people out of Belize City so that the big tourist, the five-star hotels will be coming when you're in another country and you 5 miles from the sea, you within prime property. Then like Jankro Buzzard in the city council, and I want call out and the mayor, they talk about sell people land and the people then they research like Jankro Buzzard and then they have to rob your people of your dignity. Who want to say, you know what? We can't pay for a property tax, right? We can't even you know what are the things to say? Civic pride, heavily one other approach, compliance, heavily challenge and channels and so and make young man knuckle down, you know, civic campaign, you know, you leave barbecue or some rice and beans or boil up, you know. The lady then cook, you know, certain things you clean, you paint up, you know, you do those things so that, and then like you were recommending, Mr. Brackett, that a tax credit to the people, that a tax write-off. Then you the bill streets and potholes. If you do a audit wrong, Belize other one, the mayor go audit the amount of manhole, the cement one way, they not put back over the manhole, the cover. And when they take notice that when people broke their foot or worse, have spinal problems, right? Lick their face, broke their jawbone, lick out their teeth. So with respect to that, I found it, and I wish Mr. Usher had stayed because I wanted to share that very clear position and stance against that because they can't think it right and use that to say that limitation. That is expropriation of property, which is cruel, unjust, inhuman, and robbing of people of their connection to the land, their terra firma, and peace land to defend.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to
Yes.
ask if I give me 3 minutes. Also, time
My earpiece had died out on me,
Uh-huh.
and so with that said, I would like for you to take over from here. Miss Sharon, it was nice hearing from you again, and you guys, my virtual. It's always a pleasure to sit on this show and have great discussion.
It was a
Yes.
nice
And I
show
hope,
tonight.
I
And
hope,
I just want
hopefully,
to say one thing. Sorry, sir. I just want to say one thing, no? That constitutions are meant to be of permanence. Permanence. You strengthen them, you organize them. It cannot be understood.
That's what I wanted was to read just now.
that is
Okay, good.
correct.
Go ahead.
That
Thanks.
is correct.
I realized we were running out of time, and I just wanted to close on that.
That is why
Connect it back
when
to where we
I
started.
mentioned Bahamas and I said it took 8 years and what they did for their people,
Mm-hmm.
they start backing off because I know better. I
Yes,
read a
that
lot.
was brilliant. That was, I said, thank goodness you go ahead and be able to say that.
Well,
Mhm.
I was like, you know,
I'm not doubting that they hear what we have to say, and I feel like they feel embarrassed that we have to be telling them things that they know about and that they should be dealing with. So every day or 2
then
days
the other
after
thing
our
is that
programs,
unless they
they go
pull
and
it, they
address
close,
our
they should not
concerns.
go further. Whatever was that secret vote, whatever they have done has to be fully disclosed. And Madam Diplomat, Miss Lady Diplomat, when they asked me for my note, me that we note 10, I finished by something where I do my ICJ thing and said the diplomatic dilettante and diplomatic double speak to get with conflict in a diplomatic way. Because in one case, I thought that I should remember the short name is behind and the child is beside it and sharing this declaration. It was, I think, Norway and another country, one of the locus classicus in international law. We have to look and remind ourselves of it. But it's to the effect that diplomats were at a cocktail party, and one they say, you know, rum the floor, wine the floor, treats, tidbits, whatever, and then a friend and compare. So, well, you know what? If you don't go after this, we not necessarily say anything. So then they talk diplomacy and so on and non-committal. Well, that case, and you all could look it up. I don't remember the formal name or the reference, right? But if you look at the short popular name, you will find it, right? It's to the effect that it doesn't matter whether it's in writing, the formality, the absence or presence of it. Words that diplomats say, and by extension, functionaries of state, can bind your country. So when people are there and sometimes diplomats are saying things, you have to be careful even in ridiculing them, how you refer and say things. The other thing I will say, as I said, this ICJ thing, the run, then people have two horses in at this race, if you want to call it that. ICJ and this constitutional thing, which is at X, they're both and one existential threat to the people and nation of Belize, or survival or sovereignty as a people and country. So, as a wise ancestor, my father always reminded me. He said, "My daughter, when for we people not listen, the enemy listen more. They use a camel in the tent approach. First, they nose, they in, they smell wrong, they mouth, they eye, they look wrong. The first hum, by the time the second hum, the people of the country out and they are in." I am saying this and I'm ending it with this. So, what I am saying, this thing has been gone ahead in secret and it's wrong. I did not take pictures at the end because I do not want it to look like me that as part of their christening or their dance or smoking whatever peace pipe, then pretend for the smoke. We have to say sometimes that, you know what, for the time being, we will step back because you cannot make it seem that out of some misplaced politeness, when they do, they're going in for the kill. What we have to do, we have to maintain our stance. We defend constitution, we defend country, and we defend with self and with people at home and abroad. And even the visitors who come to this rule of law country and enjoy our freedoms, right? It's a privilege to them. But when they come here, it's a right they cannot exercise in their own country. But they not take with a kuno mono too. Be at all expense. Then when you try that, you will understand there's a thing called birthright and navel string, and so on and so forth. Thanks.
Can I finish up with this quickly? We're 152 right now, and so if we end up to go to the full 2 hours, I think we have to share that between all three of us that's left, no?
Okay, so I could end before because I've said a lot of times.
No. Okay. Let me read. So time to go. Okay. The following comments were made by Leonard Brackett to Mr. Nick Pollard as a retort on a Facebook post about Belize Constitution modifications. I titled the comments, "Constitutionality of Belize Constitution modifications." That is that modifications can be made, but that doesn't mean that every modification is constitutionally correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Nick Pollard, my dear esteemed learned patriot, venerable brother and vanguard of Belize, the Belize House of Representatives is empowered, vested to make laws for the governance of the country, Belize, within the bounds and guardrails and constraints of Belize Constitution, taking into consideration the following prescripts. Number 1, the Supremacy Doctrine Clause of the Belize Constitution, Part 1, Section 2. Number 2, the Separation of Powers Doctrine, access to judicial review by the Belize Supreme Court and the Belize Appellate Court and the Caribbean Court of Justice, Part 2, Section 20, Subsection 1, Subsection 2, Paragraph A and Paragraph B, etc. The people's number 3, the people's mandamus requisitions / requirements in the preamble of the Belize Constitution on non-derogation of inalienable rights, Paragraph A to F, inclusive, on Part 2, Section 3 to 19, inclusive. Number 4, adherence to the Basic Structure Doctrine Clause in respect to the precepts of the Belize Constitution. Under that same item 4, there's a few other items, such as number 1, as in the case of exercise of daily vested legislative powers by the legislator, being the Belize House of Representatives and the Senate. Number 2, and in the daily management of Belize governance affairs by government of Belize, being the government cabinet ministers and ministries and civil public service employees. Number 3, and also the Belize judiciary, being the Belize magistrate courts and the Belize Supreme Court and the Belize Appellate Court and the Caribbean Court of Justice as Belize's highest court, as well as the Belize Bar Association, all of whom are entrusted with the responsibility of dealing with the laws of Belize and legal matters. Number 5, the Representation of the People's Act mandamus requirements stipulating that the government shall cause to be or have a referendum or election via the preamble, via the plebiscite duly registered electors. And that was the end of that. Thank you for the time spared. That's my closing, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you guys for the show tonight. Sharon, you're always welcome, and hopefully we can do this some more. But if you notice, on Saturday I brought up about the state of emergency.
Yes.
And I mentioned because the question that I wanted to ask, because we know under the Emergency Powers Act and under the Emergency Regulation Act, when you have a state of emergency without any regulation laws, like with COVID, you had, if you wear no mask, you could be picked up. If you're out a certain hour, then they pick you up and you charge, right? But now, with these young men that they are picking up with absolutely no regulation as to a crime, that was what I was getting to Mr. Osha when you were talking about fundamental rights.
I can answer quickly, right? That has to do with the liberty of the person, freedom from discrimination and against unlawful detention, and it has to do with parliamentary supremacy, democracy, and not the police state. Let me say quickly, right? If they do that for one area, how do you consider that, even if it cannot be constitutional?
No.
No, unless there was something. So South Africa had Bantustans, right? The other thing is that, remember I gave that example on Vernon Street where police stop people, but they not stop there. They wouldn't do that at Bella Vista or some other places, right? The other thing is the police unlawful detention. When my father was Attorney General, I think Dean Barrow said at a press conference as Prime Minister that his government, he was thinking of extending the length of time that people could be detained from 48 hours to something. And he said that, the Attorney General did not support him. Well, my father, apparently his services weren't needed much longer after that, no? But we love that he got to rest and he always served his country. in any event, no? But the thing with this, right? And I'll give a few quick examples, right? Because it's a very important thing, right? The police, when they detain people, even under the 48 hours, right? All those constitutional rights to guard against the
all of them.
detention, that they must speak with, communicate with an attorney privately, right away, presumption, the presumption and innocence, the other things which go through. Police detain people, and then they start to, as though we are a civil law country where they accuse you, they entrap, they tell them guys when they lock up, or this other one say something, or they put quiet police, plainclothes police with them, and then it caused an internecine continuation of this thing that somebody did snitch. But with respect to, say, detention, right, for 48 hours, they would extend it if it's a holiday on the Monday, because then they would say, well, till they could get the person before a magistrate. But guess what? Police have detained people, and sometimes the young men, just as the 48 hours would expire, they literally, I know, let them out, cross out a police station, a police street, hauling in back, right? And the other thing is that in our system and out of the English system, you have your writ of habeas corpus, right? And this is how it plays out too. These are the live examples that you tell people when your habeas corpus has the body. So that's a remedy, habeas corpus, HABASCORPUS, have the body. So that's a remedy. You can go to the Supreme Court. You see how they do things to people without taking them to court? So that if, Mr. Brackett, you mentioned how when you file cases, injunction, everything takes a time. But an emergency situation, not to relief, is a writ of habeas corpus. Because
some of these kids don't have a lawyer or the money to hire a lawyer. That's part of the problem in the system. Part of the problem in the system is that some of the young people and more than they harass, not have money to hire one lawyer.
Justice, and this is what they should be doing. But when they were putting out a man one time, the writ was gotten, and you just do an affidavit or get the attention of the court, and you deliver that. And one man, I don't remember his name, he was on the stairs of the plane. And my father and
the young man who them try extradite.
This is some decades ago. Then habeas corpus too. Like when they had that baby in prison, that was another relief, right? You take out the writ of habeas corpus, and that's to bring the body. When they detain people for long, or they do transgress your rights, but as I say, it has to do with people having the right to or access to an attorney. And this is where I am saying that it has to do with extension, how you extend the constitutional liberties or guaranteed or the policies of state which are required by the preamble of the Constitution. And even in the constitutional law, you have some preambles which are different in the sense that, and you have some which prescribe, but in law, certain things sometimes written in the widest way means that it is of more efficacy, right? Because when you start to limit, sometimes you unwittingly limit. You see, like when the evangelical person was asking about, with respect to that freedom of movement, and I think the notion came back or a half answer to him, well, maybe I could put that in the Constitution. Even this is a danger. You see how these recommendations would seem to come out without any discussion, something like that you would need to discuss. Now, if you put that in the Constitution, then what about if it's tuberculosis, right? What about if somebody else of a different faith says, well, so and so, right? If that impacts everybody, then the church has a right to go to court or through the Council of Churches make its statements through its members and so on. So that, to my mind, you go to court with that, but I don't know that you need a constitutional amendment. My friend, Dr. Sylvana Woods, and she is, major with the Creole language, following on Dr. Colville Young, late Sir Colville, or GG. Thesis in Creole at University of York is doctoral, many decades before. But she was saying at the first meeting, if you all didn't hear, her thing was Creole should be a part of the constitution, the language, so that when you go in at parliament, they could talk Creole. But that's the chingum, that's the cultural glue, that's the way in every cerebral caldo, right? So that has Belize, that a part of our identity, that a how you know one Creole, one Belizean Creole, and people of all walks of life.
But the Prime
So
Minister said we are a minority and we don't need to be
we're
bothered
not
with
a
being part of what's going
one get
on.
to that. He don't know what he need to talk about. If you give me 2 more minutes to deal with that quick. Years and years ago, Miss God rest her dead, Miss Myrna asked me last minute to go talk with one UNDP rep who was doing a consultation in Belize. UNDP or one of the UN alphabet agency. I don't remember, sometimes I get them mixed up. So we met, used a little room at Government House, and the lady started with that. Oh, Creole, you're a minority. The demographics show the census. So me know, remember what Mr. Golson said? You have to know what question to ask, not ask, ask. So I said, well, really? How do you determine majority or minority? Now, my good friend Bert Tucker, you see some people when people talk like others, you want talk thing, you want clear a room, start talk, since you want gossip, fill one room and keep them till next morning. So when people like Bert talk, he was long within in speech. Although I like talk, I have excellent attention span and listening, right? So I say, but in other countries, they not compartmentalize people so that they go whoever they want. If they want the Caucasian to be minority, then they put all other people as minority. When my cousin Dr. Pauline been a nuclear physicist, and I'm both in one, and she's bright just like Mr. Brackett.
Like you,
She
you
won
mean?
a prize. No man. She blacks, Indian, Asian, and herself, right? All black. So I was telling this lady, I said, well, we are not a minority because I believe full of black people. All are we black. Some of we look white. And as I told a young man from Archives 2 years ago, he made a pass on remarks against me as one Creole, but you treat people with love and humanity. And I say, man, I say, you ever do your DNA? By the time International Museum there, Miss Sharon, I do my DNA, and I'm not surprised, but some people I have to lead them to it a certain way. So I said like this, but who determined that? Isn't that a self-descript? And isn't Creole all away I saw it? And I said, well, if we gone from majority says 70, 80% one certain time, and we don't know officially this, and you hear the words again, I said, if it was not ethnic cleansing, then is this ethnic dilution? Well, I was never invited back to speak with the lady before, after or consulted, right? But these are the things we as a Belizean people, we could in any forum and we could hold for we own because we know how to ask questions. And if they're not answered, you know what? Okay, we are just ordinary people. Belize are just one whole bush. You go up Albert Street and the jaguar where they may keep in a cage with an exotic species. When a man get killed because and I respect life and I'm sorry for him and I'm sensitive. But when he made do the whole one jaguar. When in international environmental law, I'm an environmentalist, but I'm for people, I'm a specialist that way. But you accept things for cultural purpose. How foreigners come to Belize get laugh a pass that you can't hold parrot in a cage unless you get license and they inspect it, and after a while no license. Well, I'll tell you something. When I go and fight for the environment and I go and fight for culture, you know where I be? Yeah, be for my parley. And I know they tell you no I got any parley. But my parley, if I had any and if I have any, he and speak easy. And you know that Creole, and you not saying a lot of things wrong. Okay, if you know setting about certain people wrong, if I got if you not think I got speak easy, no solution. But at least speak easy, you know, to know people and
Well,
so I'm
you're
serious.
breaking up. You're
Sorry,
breaking up.
I was too many flippant, but I'm serious, no? So we have to, we will be told, all the Caribbean and when you look at Bahamas, they protect their people and continue until they claim their islands. When you look at Jamaica, the
We have to
Martin
stop.
is saying, you know what happened to the public beaches, right? When you look at certain places, they take a long time, but none of them have this external existential threat that is affecting Belize. So we as a people have to tell them people, you know what, that secret thing gonna do, we don't want no part of it. We don't want this constitutional thing right now. We not trust it and we constitution good. The politician they should have fixed themselves and write themselves. If they're not writing, they
Unkak,
must write themselves.
Unkak, first and foremost. Secondly, Amendment 7, clarification, clearing up of the dastardly deed that they did in terms of reneging, going into the representation of the People's Act, and then excluding born Belizeans from exercising their God-given and constitutional rights. But I want to go back to that one point where I'm going to try to get out just now, when I was asking Greg. In fact, I should have asked Greg for work on that. That thing where Crazy Man commissioner was talking about superseding the orders of the court, Greg. Could you contextualize that quickly, if you don't mind? Can I intrude on you for that? Just for the
You're talking about the compul?
Yeah.
The compul is crazy, right? He went on to say that there's a SOE in Jamaica and El Salvador, right? So what's wrong with it in Belize? But I can tell him, you know, I research law like crazy when I challenge these things. And right now in Jamaica, the same SOE, they went up against it and they ban it. Even in America, there's law. What they are saying is you cannot trump the constitutional right of anyone under the Constitution of freedom of association and expression. And they gave example, the police who have tattoo all over their body and they all wearing a uniform. And like the gangs, they're out there beating up people, some shooting people, you know. But as I said, there is case law proving that. The second one, with the case with the young men in Orange Rock, they are saying that when the police tell you stop, you have to stop. There's a case in Australia where it says you have the right to run from the police if you haven't committed nothing unless you was arrested and you try to escape, then yes, they can use some form of force. But until
the police
they did the investigation under reasonable, articulable suspicion, and they come to you and you are legally detained, you have the right to run away, and that does not constitute resisting.
Neither does it mean that you're entitled to a death penalty.
It has to be escape from lawful custody, not just custody. Exactly. And I will tell you two quick examples. I had a client one time charged for escape from lawful custody and some other crime. And what he instructed me, I said, no way. This is about 15 years ago. So I asked my father come in, right? To my Lee office. Usually I go to him, but I said, you hear this? You know what the man defense was? And it was so in court. He catch one bus by Pongyard Bridge. He in the back of the bus. And the police in a uniform gone to the back of the bus and they try to rob him. Another thing, what the police do recently, I've seen it happening over and over. And I talk firsthand. I indicate to them, well, so-and-so has instructed, and they will not be given any statement. The only thing, the name, address, occupation, date of birth, and Belizean. Say it over and over.
Constitutional right.
Tell the people there. You don't have to sign nothing if you're not sure. You know, several times I've had to go, and when I reach it, I had to tell the police there, you know, and they have the people and have JSP, and they argue, and like they are instructed. You know what they say? We just interview the person and have it and telling the person to sign, you know. Those things are constitutional breaches and they smack of a police state. and then all is smack. I'll give on one thing about
Yeah,
separation of powers. So one example quick, right?
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
When PUP was in, there was an incident at, I don't even know if it was an incident, something that Belmopan. And this man was said to have given a disturbance, right? And then you say parliamentary supremacy, you have the executive, but you see the liberty of the person still protected. So a person from the gallery must have said something, right? And apparently a politician or somebody, a police moved in, swooped in, and dealt with that person. And something else may let them go. So the person may have bliss them, see something the night, the data, the day. So by the time come out, police gone with him, right? That station. Allegedly, a minister of government send somebody to tell him, well, you know what? If you apologize to minister personally, then I let you go. So they don't have out of the cell. Well, that citizen said, officer, carry me back in my cell and lock me up, right? As it played out in court, right? And as we expected, right? I think they may abandon after a while. The man, the police have no authority within parliament and whatever would be the precincts of parliament, unless the sergeant at arms
Right on.
ask the police to
Perfectly
assist.
stated.
And the other thing is, that's why when the Queen visit and if the King visit, the parliamentary supremacy from 1688, Parliament invites the Queen in and she gives her speech. And so you have some traditions which are hardened, right? And this is where you have things that
That's why we
you
have
can maintain the ceremony and you can maintain your nationhood and your identity.
Sharon,
right?
that's why they call it Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition and Her Majesty's Government.
Yes.
We're still under the sovereign.
Oh,
We're
and one thing,
independent,
Mr.
but
Right?
under the sovereign. We have a condition of independence.
When I was studying constitutional law in the Caribbean, right? The early 80s, right? They had like Grenada and Guyana and a place where they experiment with all kind of things. Later on, I think Trinidad had problem, right? Then people better left the constitution alone, because of the very thing where want protect them politicians from the wrath of the people of Belize. Because we are constrained by our God and we are constrained by our constitution as a God-fearing,
I keep warning them,
loving
but they don't
people.
listen. They don't want
And
to
at that make them get spare. So Grenada and then one made the experiment, and when they done the New Jewel movement and the other one, one of the country for about 4 years they suspend their constitution. What did they run to? The Westminster style parliament. They media people with freedom of speech, wherefore them that they call themselves the fourth estate, but even the constitutional experts are saying you have to watch tyranny of the press too. And in our countries, watch who own some of the media and watch when the media gang up and libel citizens in their headlines and
you know what, Sharon?
and they serve
That
their
is why, Sharon, that is why they ban seditious activity, sedition, because they were using it against the press like crazy. Every time the press go out and do something, they want to haul them in. But also, before we go, I want to say this, right? Since we were speaking about the SOE and we were talking about running from the policeman, I have mentioned this on more than one occasion about resisting arrest without a primary. And it's important that the people of Belize know that you cannot be charged with resisting arrest that is a secondary if you don't have a primary.
Of course.
And that's the problem with Chester. That's the thing about with Chester. That Chester want to turn around and say that despite what any court say, if the court can't give the man bail, he will still turn around and arrest him under the SOE when the SOE is damn self is illegal on its face.
That is contempt of court. That is contempt of court by an officer of the court and a functionary of the executive.
Isn't that what I told you guys?
And that can be sanctioned by the court.
I said that on the show. Mr. Weird heard me said it. My cousin heard me said it.
I want to give an sad example of something during state of emergency, remember the little boy who died? When I was hearing certain things, right? Now the beach, freedom of movement, right? This is one of the worst example of what happened to what on our commons, If it's the beach, even if it's on a private premises, that nothing happened. But if I understood rightly after that case, I believe the compol was admitting that it was a private person from the property who handed the police the gun. And Dickie Bradley, my friend, my colleague, my brother-in-law in that sense, was saying that police want vehicle, they get vehicle, they want gun, they want supplies, there's a handing over, and then you identify and serialize those things. But that is wrong. You cannot do that. Now the police could commission certain things certain way, but that had to be looked into in all those circumstances. So that two things, well, more than two, apart from that, that child lost his life.
Because
it was taken away. That child was on public property and to be protected. Every time you see one picnic or a youth on private property, you would profile them.
I like how Dickie
is it wrong for children to be enjoying running home if they feel late? Much young boy not run home when they go on a matinee, right? So
how much time I run home when I was little?
And the other thing is that
when I'm want nobody shoot me.
Prong and Hines, or and Hines. I hope Chester me in a class then. I don't know if he made a skip school or not. Me don't remember that of it, but that's a Jamaica constitutional local state where they try to pass a law with respect to the police and the gun court. And I think that went to the Privy Council. And it was struck down as unconstitutional that you could use the court looking into those cases and so on, right? So that is law. That is law. That is law. That is law.
But Sharon, we have a major problem in our country that all our men who are supposed to go out there and issue lawful orders are ignorant of the law in some instances, and in some other instances, they're just ignoramus and stupid and try to pretend that because they're an officer, they can violate the law under the commit crimes under the color of law, turn around and accuse the civilians of violating other simpler things just to get the excuse for them to be excused from the crimes that they commit. That is that then the police officers, instead of interdicting them, they turn around and say, well, the man was trying to do his job, so we can't be too hard on him. When they lie, including the commissioner itself, come up and lie to the public and then turn around the other one and say, well, maybe, and try to make excuses. Sometimes, like that case with that police officer who get shot in the back of the head on the wharf.
Okay, I comment on that because there was a time when I'm
just repeating what I said before. That is that the police department and specifically the commissioner himself should not have came out and made any statement as regard to that matter when that matter was still being investigated.
That is why you don't have trial by media and you don't open your mouth generally with respect to cases. One other thing I'm want to say with respect to, this was just a quip. You want to use Jamaica as an example. Bob Marley me write some song where I made a quote in our case when I had to defend one man. After I said, there's some words to the effect that he opened his eyes on the ground to look at and uniform brutality was looming over here. And then one other lead thing, one time I got on Queen Street, me always got a Belize small. And I asked to say one client, give me a name. The young policeman look right for me. How I know you don't want attorney? So you know me. Sometimes I like meat razor blade too. So I said, and how I know you don't want police? Well, him in our uniform, you see. But I asked how I know you the police come in, know he the police neither. But and I get this joke after Hurricane had the first artificial police, or a man they call Huey, and said people made a volunteer for do extra police duty, so he get a uniform, a boots, a hat, everything, a belt, and he made a show up. But when he was no longer of necessary or good service, They send her home, but every day he still address and tell the family going to work. You know, they bring no money neither, but he may love being a police. So now one of my family tell me that when I there in New Orleans, he say, you never hear about artificial police, it's a 2001. So when me they hear that case for them and it's wrong in a police uniform and they rob people, it's wrong. When I was a student in Jamaica and the Caribbean, I realized that it was illegal in one or two other countries who wear camouflage. Remember, I'm popular as a farm address and Belize people still use it. But you see why those things are. But you
Anyhow,
can, the police are such that they must understand we don't have a police state and they serve people and their officers to keep the peace. And in the days gone back, if they want good policing, remember when people used to say in the name of the Queen and they help the police.
So okay, I think we'll have to close this one down for tonight.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Belizean. And thanks, Mr. Chair, for your patience.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Good night to
Thank you, Mr.
good
Wade,
night to
for
you
being here
guys,
for
Ms.
tonight,
Spitz,
and
Mr. Brackett,
thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Wade sitting with me virtually. I think tonight on our 25th edition of Belizean Affairs, hopefully we have educated the public and a lot of substance concerning Belize, and may we come back and do this again if Ms. Spitz have some time. We're on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday. I know you might have some caseload, you know how that go, but we will send you the link, and if you have time, please join us. Okay?
It was a long day
Yes,
to
I
bring up
will.
meetings, but this was important. And please accept my heartfelt graciousness on behalf of Belizeans here in Belize and abroad, because the work that you do, the tremendous, I don't know what to call it. It's a duty of sons and daughters of the soil, and you do it with tenacity, and it's something that people, we're always on call, and you're always in ongoing session, no? Thanks a lot, yeah? 25 years, and it's been great.
You're welcome. Now to you, Mr. Wade.
Well, it's always a pleasure, guys, to sit with you guys. And like you said, you're welcome, Miss Fitz, anytime, you know. Just send her the link. And tonight I mostly listen to her. I gave her all of my time. But very, very you know, just to say that I close by saying, you know, I'll say this to the People's United Party government in office right now, that you know, the state of emergency is not in the south side of Belize City. You know, you all have it wrong. The state of emergency right now, you should you know, ease the burden at the grocery stores for the poor people, right? And try to lower the price of gas, right? I know you guys have a gas vouchers that you take out, all on the backs of the Belizean people. So you guys don't give a hoot, right? People are punishing out here, man, and you guys want to fool around with tampering with our constitution that is not important at this moment, right? I don't see anything wrong with my constitution, right? You guys need to stop it, right? And tend to the needs of the Belizean people. People are going to bed hungry. Kids are going to bed hungry, right? And you guys are fooling around. Need to stop. Past and present government, you know, take a grip on yourself, man, right? And start to do what's right by people and this country, okay? And on that note, I want to thank you guys for being a part of the 25th edition of Belizean Affairs. And again, Ms. Sharon, you're welcome at all time.
Very important. I almost messed up just now by having the show close out before I finish this point. This point here is for tonight's celebration of our 25th show milestone. we had agreed that we have a winner, one of the persons that's listened to and supports our program a lot, that we were going to be offering a little token. And the name of that person is Ms. Verena Ferte. Tomorrow, you will get your Western Union codes, and hopefully, you know, after listening to us and spending all your money on telephone bills, I guess, to listen to us, we're saying that not only do we try to contribute some additional knowledge to you and everybody else, but we just want to drop in a little coin in the tail to pay some of your bills, so you could keep on listening to us more. And hopefully, by the time we get around to the 50th milestone, you know, we don't know who I'm on the run, but maybe we'll have more than just one person. Thanks very much, and God bless these and Belizeans at home and abroad. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good night.
Well,
Good night,
guys, those who have eyes, let them see. Those who have ears, let them hear. For a long time, we have been trying to educate on Constitution, and tonight we had a legal person with us, and you can see of all the things we have been saying, we are on the same page. Nothing have changed, just truth. With that said, I would like to say good night to the people at home and abroad in the diaspora, and hope you will tune in again on our 26th edition of Belizean Affair on Wednesday night, same time, same place. With that, good night.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
God bless.